Kaya yung sa tini, stikat Johan, ya itikat kleinach yati, ya akjiwa dech tsina, kaika we the two, kuch daki hiti, gwell yis a sai kutzati, kuch, what's that do a sak, kuch de his daki hiti, kaika adachawe chwatao, kaika ya ach yejene itika adachaya, hard chosati. Ye awe tellach to ashko we ye ge tsina. Gwell tell atcha good aqa yande shwitli qitsnuch tellach to ashko qanach awe. Ya khana ach to asagu gwell qadawuz ye jiwu aqa gwell ach to asagu ha ye jine dat yuqaqach tutla adi. Ya iti sandech ak tleich ye gi ach to asagu hat ye ti tleich neek kuch gwell kashuk yake. We just tleich ashkal neek we gwell kun kadunigi at gwell yo we gachtis kun kadunigi at neek kuchakach. Ya ach to asagu ha in kayiniki awa ata. Aqa awe wuchi nyuk agachtutla achaye cooking. Gwell dech qadawuz haqaq diwuz yake ganilchish. Ye awa ha ye jene. Ya khana a conjugation party you do sago at qane ye gachtu sahi sagutin. A iti we kakhwan ish shkalniki dat ye jagachtune. Ye awa ha ye jene ya yedat. Seqanen we COVID nagu away ach 2 day aya kagachtul saq. Echwasaku wasa at kakwane. Ya flu nagu away has qadqewa was chadechi ay twasaku. Ye awa has to inkachwaniki ya yedat qakwal just take talchudechi Ya Woosh ya gwell tlallach to ashko ach tu ye wuti. Ye awe dachnach achun kian hasbu neek weita adach. Helpa saka gwati kwa tlallach to ashko chudechia. Ya seqanen we taat gucha ate qanduq ishji ach tu asaku adechwa kuchu. Hechwasaku gwell ye gwati kwa. Qonekechat gwanik. Teshadeka kwakuch. Ya achtu yake we gucha at ya kanduqishji yersene wan qanins tin aya Woosh how gugu ye awa sagutin qoa ye tlayatke ya dachnach qoa ye khwajien qone ya has qoqallaga. But he's a good kach one qanins qatuas a gu qullagau. Heshwasa o tiqa. Ya achtu yike yoxatini. Gwalli tuas a gu yuchatank at chitleyechi. Gug de. Gwal tlaik qatawus gawu. Wasa yitu Woosh.
Wasadu was spelled to his stack hidi ka.
Library.
Wasadu was spelled Lingi chat box shit ye khoji ka.
Kwashi. Oh, cook adu his ye. Yeah, well. Kleskadin yuch wasa. Ye awa jaguta sai hatuasagu. Gwalli saku ya cook adadi wane ya dech Yis at away wa akhatli yak away. Chishuka ni cook taki hiti. Gwell itwasagu yis cook yihuni yak or yiu yak cook de hits de two cook. Te anawe kaksha hitika. Jindu hayi cook taki hiti. Jindu hayi cook itu asak. Le kak inach mail. We an aus adis wu cook to. Atcha taki hiti, dana taki hiti. Kunak taki hiti. Yata naskasaya kutsati. Atkan hiti. Tsek taki hiti. Tsek hit. Tsek hit wecho ach deslin. Hundaki hiti, kagak daki hiti, achu a chach, kakanesti hit.
Benaltish.
Yeah.
Chad yak dag ye chad yati kwashki kwan ani kachaya siu daku sitan ya yagi aka udikan tatka surfing de wutu at tatgawa uk echa benaltish.
Okay. At kakaushatit. We what's up with was yan yan yakakanaltiti. Yakakanaltiti. Gwell you owe it to a sakwe surfboard.
Okay, benaltish.
Okay.
Excuse me. Kanesti hit Russian Orthodox, yeah?
Yehwaji.
Gonna chish.
Agak hit we chakuta. Charge ayehwa achtu. Acho ateshas de toa oshko. Hwa acho. Okay. Good cheese. Some of the things I was talking about, it's good to see everybody. On Monday, please bring a news article from something, some relevant, right? Some piece of news of the day, and bring a few things to say about it. We won't read the whole thing. You don't have to translate the whole thing for us, but give us the summary. I guess maybe I froze. I guess the future version of this is we'll all be reporters. That'll be pretty fun. So you gotta get your reporter voice, it'll be fun. So do that and then have a couple of questions for us. And then as an active audience member, think of a couple of things to say. And we'll just take it nice and easy. I'll try and make sure to allow for nice long pauses while folks are thinking of something to say. And we'll try and just have a big long conversation on Monday. Let's see. The other day, what did I say? I went to hockey. Oh, what I said, I'm going to get my booster shot tomorrow. They asked, you want the flu and the booster at the same time? I was like, yeah. But now I think I don't. I think I just want one. I don't want to mix them up inside my body. So I'll do the flu later. So I'll just get my COVID booster. And I had a couple of friends that got sick from it. So see how it goes. I got hockey tomorrow night, so hopefully I can go. I have fun playing hockey because we could be mean to each other, push each other around. and still have fun. So it doesn't seem too intense. Although last time I played, these two guys almost, I thought they were going to fight. They're really yelling at each other. It's kind of fun. Yeah, I think that's most of what I said. So we're going to move into the conjugation party and kahu and ish, probably in that order. But first of all, anybody got any questions or thoughts you want to share?
Wasa dusak singit yata challenge for peace, where challenge is an obstacle towards
Yeah.
equity.
So there's this verb for challenge, but I don't know if it's going to do the job if we're thinking of like a, well, I'll show you which one. So we go up here and we go, oops. Yeah, my internet might be kind of bad here today. I should have just stayed home. Got plenty of good internet there. No, let me keep the chat open. Yes, I did. I said neek x'úx'u is like a newspaper. And then I said, oh, what did I say? Kan ʼadudli.átk. Kun ʼadudli.átk. There it is. Something that's something that's told to people. And you'll notice as I look for this, I will sort of switch between saying the akawanik verb and the yawaka verb and the ayausaka verb. So, and then you could also use x'úx'u, right? So if you're using the x'úx'u verb, like spoke to someone, you would use the akawanik verb for told them the information or told the information. And it's important to know that like the do-een, that's where that een part right before it is how you say who it's being told to. Because if you conjugate it like neek, that's not you told me, that's you told on me. So ach een ki neek. And then gunachish ach een ki neeki. Thank you for telling me. So that's just like where the focus is the information. Then I told them about the party. I told them about the thing. It switches to an L classifier to tell a story. So, ach in kaitlanik, you told me a story. And chish ach in kaitlaniki, thank you for telling me a story. And then it could switch to a plus D classifier to kick the object out. Say, shkaitlanik, you were telling stories. Ach in shkaitlanik, you told me stories. You would switch to yeyawaka if you're quoting a specific thing. They said this thing, where the actual words are important, not the information, but the actual words. But that one doesn't, it's not said to anybody. It's just like they said this thing. Walter Sobolov said this. And then I'm giving you some quote. But you would switch it to an S classifier to say, tell it to somebody. They told it to me. Okay. So, but this is a challenge, but I don't think it's the thing that we're thinking about, right? So here we go. Yes, Woosh, they challenge each other to a fight. Hey, there's the hockey game right there. Oh, I say, sometimes people on the ice, they want to fight. Hockey's kind of a fighting sport. I don't want to fight. I just want to play hockey. But there was a time, the way I've heard this used as well, because it could be a dare. George Ramos said it to me. He said, "Ikwadek, I'm going to challenge you." Then he said something really difficult. I didn't understand it. So it could, it could be something like that. So I'm freezing again. Okay, but it's a transitive verb. So I could say, so if we look at this doesn't tell us a whole lot of information. Let's go look at, I don't know if I can answer your question, but we'll talk about it. So like a challenge for peace, is that what you're saying?
Yes, challenge for peace. A friend asked a question quite a long time ago, but trying to make good on the promise to give an answer.
Is this like, if we're going to use this verb, I would feel like I'm holding on to peace and you're going to have to defeat me in order to get it. That's what I would think of with this one. But we're going to see if it's in here just so we can see how to use it. And I don't see it. Okay. So let's do a little bit of digging with this. Like you could make this, I think, like a piece, a challenge. Well, kayet is peace. So you could say kayet, yes, and then we got to get the challenge part.
If you recall the peace ceremony, it's almost kind of like that when you leave it undone because you're challenging somebody to do their part to complete it. I don't know if there's a way of making it non-physically fighting. I don't know.
Oh wow, would ʼadudli.átk, calling a bull moose. Yeah, and so like I think the challenge, this verb on its own is not like fighting, but it's just sort of saying like I'm gonna dare you or I'm gonna challenge you. So I would guess that it would be challenging people. So I would probably say something, my guess would be kayet yes. Kudek, maybe. That's a good question.
Kudek.
Kudek, like challenging people.
Ah.
But so like, let's go back to the verb dictionary for a second though. So when we look this up, we see it's a zero classifier, it's dek. In the perfective, it's long and low. So the only things we can gather so far, it's a zero classifier, it's transitive. We know it's transitive because it says woosh has with the dek, so there's both an object and a subject in there. I also know that because I heard an elder tell me ik wadek, and it made me scared. But because, so this is in the perfective, but what else does it show us now that we can see it in the perfective? It shows us one other thing. Anybody know?
Something about the classifier?
Well, the classifier switches to a D because they're challenging each other, right? So you could say yes, woosh dek. We challenge each other to a fight, right? So you could change that part. But I'm thinking about this. So the stem is long and low. So all that tells us though is it's not a zero conjugation class. It's either na, ga, or qa, but we don't know which one. But we could, as we sort of look up, and this is the process of sort of learning new verbs, is you just look in the, I look in the verb dictionary, then I check Carrie's database. If it's not there, then I'll go to Jeff's notes. So we'll go to D, DE, and we see challenge. It takes us down too far. ʼadudli.átk. And so it does show you its qa conjugation. So now you should be able to, like, if you were encouraging someone to challenge them, you could say ʼadudli.átk, challenge them. You could also say ʼadudli.átk, challenge me. And you know, whatever we're doing. I don't know what we're doing. So that shows why it should be long and low. And then we have ʼadudli.átk. So I would probably say ʼadudli.átk would be pretty good for challenging people. I'm trying to think of, I heard Nora say this one other way, but I can't think of it now. Yeah, and so basically, if you're looking at a verb, and I know we've talked about this before too, like so you go find it, then you look at the sample sentence, and then you go to Carrie and see if she's got it conjugated. Then you go back to uh, then you go into Jeff's notes, and you sort of take a look at those three, and you see what you might find. And then if I do it, like I got a whole bunch of stuff on my computer, so I could just do a search on my computer for deek, and then I'll see maybe there's some other noun that comes up that helps us. No, I don't come up with anything. Okay. We'll say for now, kayekis kudeek.
I have a question related to that. I'm thinking about Monday's assignment where we find a news article and a question that a listener could ask the reporter is, what is your evidence? Which is less hostile, I think, than challenge.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, you could say something like, you might say something like, wasa akach wuditzaku, or wasa wuditzaku. How do people know it? Evidence, that's a good one too. You can.
Suye Yanaka for that again. What wasa?
Wasa wuditzaku. Yeah. How do people know it?
How do people know peace?
Oh, yeah. So, I mean, and sometimes if folks are looking for something, especially like some things, they can have like a really snazzy name in English, and then they want you to, you know, like people ask me this all the time, like, can you translate these parts of our website? It's like, well, I could try. Like, okay, well, we have nourish. I was like, okay, what do you mean? What are you doing? Tell me what, because sometimes these single words or these pairs of words work really well in English, but then it's like, well, what is the challenge? Because maybe it's saying like the desire to achieve peace or to, you know, so there you can end up with like looking for peace, wanting peace, acquiring peace.
So I know that we often prescribe peace and humility in the actions that we do, but we were renowned by many other tribes as not being peaceful. So a part of me believes there has to be something associated with that. War songs, challenging type of gestures and phrases, because that's who we were. I mean,
Yeah, I think you go back and we're pretty good at burning it all down. So that means we had to have like really high stakes peace ceremonies and desires for that, I think, because I feel like it could be like, well, yeah, we could wipe each other all out if we're not careful.
Right. Yeah.
And that quwaqan quwusti, now that's like the peacemaking ceremony. So it kind of depends. So sometimes when folks are asking for a translation, it might be something that requires a conversation. It's sort of like, hey, what are you trying to do here?
sure. Actually, I will use this translation to kind of instigate that if it doesn't work out to what they want.
Okay.
Hopefully get another member here. I have one other question really quick. This one should be a lot easier. It was harder for me to interpret because it almost sounded like a command or like you're talking down in a way. I'm not sure if that's where they were coming from with their voice, but just the way it's put, we are on Tlingit land. Was it do sakyata Tlingit Chayanach, we are on Tlingit land.
Tlingit ʼánk yehayati.
Ah. Wait before you press enter. I'm going to try to type it out myself.
All right, yay. And oh yeah, I'll let you guys. I don't have to type anything. Hooray! This is advanced Tlingit. I type no more. So wonderful. Yeah, and then there's another. So Tlingit ʼánk yehayati. You could also say Tlingit ʼánk, or you say q'úx'u. However, or it probably should be a q'tu'u. Let me check the verb real quick. There's a slight difference between these two. Whereas if you said Tlingit ʼánk q'tu'u, it could be interpreted as you own some land there. So that's one of the big differences between q'u'u, to live somewhere, as a verb, q'ua'u, and yeyati.
Yeti. Okay. Okay, you can press enter. I think I have.
I already deleted it. I thought this was
Dasa.
Ichwadek. Guk kashikit. I challenged you to write it. These fingers don't type no more. Kelsu kuk gwadak. Oh, okay. Yeah, well. Tlingit ani ka ye ha yati. Yeah, well. You okay?
Jeez.
Anybody else got anything else you're thinking about? Okay.
There was something I was thinking of was like steaming open, like a tlenate sich or a tlenate shas or even a yauk, like you steam it open. I seen like it is wider, but I don't know. When I looked up steaming, I just found like steaming berries and food.
All right. There was this prove verb that ʼadudli.átk was showing us. Yoqa yan kauch sanuk yakutzege. So if this was something that proves something, so here, this shows us again, what verb mode is this verb in right here? We'll get to the steaming thing in a second.
Perfective.
It's perfective. And so we see here, yan is in front of it, ka thematic, s classifier, neek. What else does this tell us now that it's in the perfective?
0 conjugation type.
Yes, because it's short and high, right? And so the second one is yan kakasanukut chan akawa neek. They have told me so that I will be sure of the situation. So that's the other thing, is like prove, verify, find out, be sure of, understand the situation. So this could work as well. And I would probably suggest yan ʼadudli.átk could be a thing that proves that it is that way. The verifier. Okay. And this is a really good question, especially so like Tlingit is very well documented. But then we're going to find that maybe there's certain things that we don't particularly have yet. And this might be worth going to. And we still have speakers, that we can ask these really challenging questions to. So there are folks who are working with Keishi, Bessie Cooley. There are folks who are working with Anyat Lahash, Sam Johnston, Qanak, Ruth Demert, Akatad, Florence Shakely, Qanak, Fred White. And so we can sort of take stuff to them. So sometimes we'll find things like, so here's steaming berries in the ground, steaming fish in the ground, steaming berries in a hot pit in the ground, steaming like a steam bath. Oh, okay. A yayish with the woo. Huh. Ganchish. That seems like the verb to send someone. Like you sent them there. You sent them to go. I'll check it out.
What if we looked up bentwood box? Would steaming show up there?
Well, I guess, yeah, we could do a search for a bentwood box. Let me move this thing. There it is. So, x'úx'u, what is the x'úx'u in here? Anybody know?
Wood.
Wood. And then so, again, or also. Well, I'll say also. Kadusnak. So here's another one. Kausanak. So it's a 0. So this means to have it take a certain shape. So the steaming part isn't even like it's in there too. Like it's just sort of inferred.
Yeah.
Interesting. And so again, like so because these things are searchable, yeah, I entered bent wood and then it popped right up. It looks like the only thing with bent wood in there, which is pretty cool. So then I could clear the search bar and I'll go look up knock and see what comes up. So we'll go down. And then we're looking at this one, to shape, form, cause to take a certain shape. So again, following our sort of pattern, we found it there. Now let's go check out the database and see if it's maybe in there. So, we're in the ooh.
You're a detective.
Yeah. So I don't see it here, but we can now go to phase 3 of our verb investigations and go into the Lear notes to N, A, go down, and we've got shape. So, not that one. A kausanak, shaping it, forming it by stretching or bending, training a child, raising a child a certain way, has a habit, is shaped this way. Teach kanaka, so that's a shoehorn or like a shaper that they might use to put moccasins over or to push moccasins through onto to get them to take a certain shape or to stretch them out. A kausanak. Okay, good questions. Okay.
x'úx'u, ʼadudli.átk. I love using search on everything on my computer. ʼadudli.átk. And I found there's a Gold Belt Heritage unit called the Bentwood Box. They used a phrase for a plank is bent.
Okay. There is also, I gotta find it.
That wouldn't apply to like a spoon or a bowl or a dugout being steamed open though, right? Because the box is steamed closed. And the yaw and everything is steamed wide. It's like the reverse, yeah.
Well, the verb is to shape something, right? So it's all about it seems because like you're really trying to get that shape, right? When you steam a canoe, right? You're trying to get it to open up to get a particular shape. So I would think the same verb would work because even though you're bending it, that's not the verb for bending something. There's a different verb. That's a verb for shaping something, which is really interesting too, because like I would expect like a kawatan or something like that for Like if you took a coat hanger, like a wire coat hanger, and you just bent it, that would be a different verb than this one. Oh, okay. Hi.
A shoehorn opens up a shoe shape. It widens it too. So
Yeah. So it's more like getting it to, it's almost like you're molding it, but it's different. That like if you were to do clay, then that would be chu, right? So it's a different, so
Oh.
it's another one of these things with Tlingit where like there's all these categories to do one particular type of motion. Do you have a link for that Go Belt lesson? I can probably find.
I downloaded it, but I'll find you a link.
Sheesh. Okay. Okay. I'm glad we've got that. Glad they did that work. Okay, back to the verbs. So just trying to think of like just these multiple ways to think about a verb, to look at a verb, to talk about what does the classifier do, what do these different sort of things do, how do we just sort of become verb internalizers, right? We're just looking for more verbs. I want to get this verb, I want to feel like I've got it. My recommendation now is that if you can put a verb, if these modes exist, command, so do it or be that way. Don't do it, don't be that way. So command, prohibitive, the imperfectives, positive and negative, is that way, is happening, isn't that way, isn't happening. Perfectives, did, didn't, was or became, wasn't, didn't become. And futures, will, won't. If you can do those, you kind of got the verb. I would sort of focus on verb building in general, and then if you feel like it, start getting into the no way it can do it, would have done it. Like that stuff is more rare. For day-to-day communication, you really need these do, don't, is, isn't, was, wasn't, will be, won't be. That's enough for now. But if you feel like you're mastering all of that real fast, you can look at some other things, those habituals and those things like that, the hortative. But in terms of like, so here's your sets of classifiers here, right? There are 4 groups of classifiers, 0, S, L, SH. I like to think in this top left, 0, sa, shla, sha. In my brain, those are the default modes of the classifier. They also happened to be associated with different things around the head. Shla is the neck. Sa is the base of the neck. Sha is a head. And you got to jump to the plus eye, but ya is a face. So if those help you remember, there's maybe something to that. However, 0, sa, sha, sha. That's just the natural form of the classifier. If you need to mark that it has happened or that we're talking about a potential, so if this thing happens or whatever, then it goes plus I. Those are the only ones, there's only a few of them that are plus I. Doing it, does it, or is that way. Did it, became that way. Does it regularly, or is that way regularly. Might do it, might not do it, can't do it. All those ones are plus I. Everything else, there's no I. So those are the only ones you need to have it go plus I for. If the classifier is plus I, nothing can knock that vowel out of there. It has to stay. Minus I modes will be everything else. It's an act imperfective, it's not happening, didn't happen, progressive, it's like it's in this process, all the yana, kena, all those other things. everything. All those are all minus I. All the futures, everything. So because of that, sort of my current approach to talking about it and teaching about it is that it's this, and you mark it with the I if it has happened. It's usually what we're talking about. The potentials are a little weird because they're kind of might, but just deal with that. You can also add the D if you're talking about either middle voice, so the subject is also the object, or we kick out the object in some of this. Not every verb, but there's quite a few of them where you can kick the object out. Then it goes plus D. So for example, chatu, I'm reading it. Chatatu, I'm reading. Right, so the focus goes on the action, not on the thing. So that's the classifier. And then just think about how all these things interact. We sometimes look at what type of verb. Is it an act verb, an event verb, a state verb, a motion verb, or a position? Oh, were we looking for an example of something?
Yeah, I was when you explained the concept of a classifier just being the S and then going plus I if it has happened. Would that be an example of that as the verb siti?
It would be sa, and then it goes to city. If it's just the letter S, it should be plus D. So like you could say, for example, shchwat I saw myself. So I am the object and I am also the subject. So I am going to see myself shkakwastin. Or you could say woosh wutudzatin. Ye woosh gachtustin. That's why it switches just to that letter S, because it's plus D.
And you said it, can you explain why they go plus D? Do you say it has to do with the object and subject?
Yes. So some verbs are just naturally plus D, like conversing, but you're both a subject and an object when you're conversing. But if you have any type of, especially like an act verb, where someone does something to something, and if they do it to themselves, you're going to get a SH in front of the verb, and then it's going to go, that's going to push it plus D. Or whoosh right in front of the verb will push it. So like, let's see, a zero, like udeq, right? To challenge, right? So you could say khodeq, I challenged them. Ikhwadeq, I challenged you. Shkhwadeq, I challenged myself. Woosh wutudeq, we challenged each other. So that SH is a contraction of chush, and the whoosh is to each other. So if we're doing it to each other or doing it to the self, that will always push it plus D. That's what we should expect. We're teaching it inside of ourselves. So that's why that's plus D. If you get that SH in there, you're gonna get plus D almost every time. So do it to yourself or do it to each other. And same with, so ichsatin, I see you. Ichsatini, it's good to see you. Woosh wutudzatin, we saw each other. So ye'eqasatin, I will see you. Yevushgachtustin, we'll see each other. This one, you could say Shatin as a command form. Watch it. Choshatin, I watched it. What is that thing? They say Kedain shchotletin. I really took care of myself. And then Kedain shkukwashtin. I will take care of myself. I'll watch after myself. I could say x'úx'u, I wrote it. And I could say x'úx'u, I will write it. But this one can go, I could kick that object out of that one, and I could say x'úx'u, I wrote. Like, yeah, I wrote a book, I drew a picture, and the objects, that thing that you did it to is not important, it's the action. X'úx'u, I will write. Like if I write screenplays or poetry or fiction, I'm just telling people what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna go write. All right, so sometimes the focus is on the action, sometimes it's on the verb that contains the object and the subject. Chish. So all these things fit together, right? And we just keep in mind the order that these things go in. This preverb area, things before the verb. Woosh, which pushes it plus D. Hus, which pluralizes the third person. And then we've got the objects. Chat, ha, I, yi, zero or a, ka or k, at, chush, but more commonly just the sh. You have the conjugation prefix. So every verb has a conjugation type. Zero, na, ga, and qa. This is important. As you learn verbs, you start to sort of say, okay, what are the things I need to know? I need to know what the verb root is. I need to know what the classifier is. I need to know the conjugation prefix. That's your bare minimum. You got to know those three things if you want to use that verb. Because this matters here. So zero, like cha, to eat something. So if you... I didn't find that on... Or to go somewhere. Zero don't know cha. But so to move it into the future, kakwa cha, I'm going to eat it. Or ate kakwa, I'm going to go there. Yan chakut, I'm going right there. It's ya, na. For na, it's also ya, na. And also nothing pops up before the future. So for example, I'll say kakwata, I'm going to sleep. Or I might say yi'ide kakwanik, or yi'in kakwanik, I'm going to tell you. So for the future, and oh, this one is also ate yanagat. There's ya in the progressive, nothing in the future. That's what these two have in common. This one is different. If you're going to use a future verb that is ga conjugation, you must put k in front of it. Ke hakuchletin, we're going to be strong. Ke kwake, it's going to be good. Other k things. Ke kuchlechan, it's going to stink. If it's qa, and same with, it's happening right now. Ke nakain, it's getting better. Ke nachzin, it's getting stronger. Ke nachchan, it's getting stinky. Ke nakain. For this one, all the futures must have yay in front of it. All the progressives must also use yay. So ye aqasatin, ye aguchtagan. You have to put that yay in front of it. It's going to be sunshiny. Ye andagan. It's starting to sunshine right now. And these ones also will show up in the command form and the hortative form, right? So that's why you say ʼadudli.átk. And you say ʼqatucha, let's eat. ʼadudli.átk, let's go. What would you say? It's a hortative with ga. Qachtanuk. Oh wait, that doesn't work. Qachtaqin. Let's sit down. This one gets confusing because it's going to sound exactly like a future. So you say qachtunak. Let's get up. Qachtunak. Should say it low. But for the command forms, yes. Cha, eat it. Nata, go sleep. It took on, yeah. Which I don't, I said that to my kids. I said, what about my butt? So I don't say that anymore. But that's how you say it. It took on. Igake, be good. And then these downward ones, think, qanu. You say qasatin, see it. Okay. Okay. And so we'll continue to look at how all these things affect the verb and the classifier as well. But for now, let's talk about stem variation, right? So stem variation all has to do with, is it going to be short and high, long and high, or long and low? Those are your three options. Short and high, long and low, long and high, long and low. Okay, so, and it's predictable, except for an imperfective. It's tight. So the verb theme will mark the stem variation. So you're going to have just regular opens, and they'll just look like this, ka, right? If it's fading, you'll see this little letter H. The only thing you need to worry about is if you put some sort of repetitive thing on there, it's going to stay low. That's all it's telling you. For this one, I think there's really only two kinds, but we still mark them. So if there's no tone mark, like you see this gone, that's just a regular stem, regular stem. It's going to do everything we expect it to do. The glottalized and ejective are fancy words. All that matters is if you look at that verb theme and you see a high tone mark on that, it doesn't go low. So these ones, shot, well, it won't go low. So you say kesh, ke, shot. You would expect, because of the negative future, for it to go low, but it won't. And it's saying I won't catch it. And if it ends with an ejective, it'll also stay high. If it's got this little X, it won't change at all. So that means khan will always be khan. It won't go long, it won't go low. So for example, we can see this verb, which we usually hear as ya wa ka. So we look at this, it's na, conjugation, it's got a subject, ka. We should expect it's just a regular open stem. It's open, and we got to keep an eye on that. T. So yeyati, yekwati, yenatich, wasaiyati, any of those things. That's all from this verb. It's fading. Okay, it's a fading verb. That's only going to affect it in the repetitive forms. Gone, for the sun to shine, audagan. It's regular closed. Shot, that's high. It's gotta stay high. Qiyq, it's gotta stay high. Khan, it never changes. Any questions about that? Sheesh. So the way we start using this, let me change this to fit, is the verb mode plus the conjugation class plus the stem variation. Those three things will tell us what the stem is going to be. For example, a positive perfective. Every open zero will be high and long. Every other one will be long and low. That's it. That's the whole trick. So once you look at that, like you see, if it's na, like, I can't think of it na. I'll get a whole bunch of examples. We'll see some examples. But zero, chua cha, chwata, right? High, low, because it's nata and it's cha. Okay. For closed, all the zeros will be short and high. Everything else will be long and low. Unless there's no low version, then I'll be long and high. So if you've got qanu, I would expect khwanuk. If you've got, what's a closed zero verb? Anybody think of one? Oh, khich, to throw something. Gant khat khwachich, or gant khat uachich. They threw me out. So again, that should be short and high. It's extremely predictable, extremely predictable. You just have to sort of remember this stuff. So for me, the first thing I think of is in a perfective, all the zeros are high. That's just it. If it's open, it's got to stay long. If it's closed, it's short. Everything else is long and low on both open and closed. For the negatives, the zeros are short and high. And then if you look all the way across the board, the zero opens are short and high. Everything else is long and low. But that's why you say tlech awaska, tlech wasaka. It's right there. Everything else will be long and low unless there's no low version. Any questions about that? For futures, these are the easiest. All positive futures are long and high. All negatives are long and low. Equati, tesh equati. That was very consistent. Okay. So let's look at some perfectives. We'll do this for a little bit, and then we'll do a few minutes of kahuan each. So a perfective positive verb must have the perfective marker yo. It must have a plus I classifier, and this is what the stem will be, right? So it's got to be ya, di, kle, si, zi, shi, ji. But it's totally determined by, it's already determined by the classifier that's in the verb. A verb cannot change the classifier group. It can just go plus I minus I plus D minus D. Okay? So we saw that, what the stem should be, and we can come back to these charts, we can take a look at them. But when we look at what this is what they should look like. So what we have here, we find the classifier on the top, ya, di, si, zi, kli, gli, shi, ji. Those are all your classifier options. But then you look down here and you have first person singular, so I, we, you, y'all, they all, and someone. And the one that's marked in red here, those will be the ones that'll change to an M for Teslin. Those are the only ones. Amde, amse, amze, amshe, amgle, amshe, amje. But one of the things, so that you've got a chart like this that you can keep this, you can make a little printout of it, whatever you need to do, just so that you can start looking at it for now. And you can throw an object on the front. It'll change some of them a little bit. But for starters, you can just sort of look at this and say, okay, let me look that up, because the verb shchodzetin, I saw myself. Choshetin, I looked after it. At yijikain, you were jumping around. So now you could do these. If you look at everything, if you look at all of these, oops. So everything that's not the ya, the only thing that changes there is that single consonant in the classifier. Chwade, chwase, chwatze. So you look at D, S, DZ, L, DL, SH, J. There's a totally predictable pattern in there. And you can memorize this. You can, and what you end up doing is like these sounds together will equal this thing every time. So you can, so once you get there, when you look up a verb, you'll be able to put that prefix together in the perfective. Then the stem is already predetermined by the conjugation class and the stem type. And the fourth person, it has some rules. This group must be minus D. These ones must be plus D every single time. Any questions about that?
Can you please repeat that? Which ones must be minus D?
Yes, all zeros must be minus D with the fourth person. You cannot do de or do da. Everything else, they must be plus D. You cannot duse, dusa, dushe, dusha, dushi, dusha. It's gotta go plus D every single time. Okay, and we'll look at a whole bunch of examples too. If you put a thematic prefix on there, it will change it a little bit, but actually not a whole lot. It's still predictable. It does open up, however, the number of ones that will change to the M for inland speakers. So now we've opened that up because we've introduced a sound which is going to cause contraction on the perfective marker. But we'll also see the same pattern here. You have these ya classifiers. Everything else, you just change a single sound, that single consonant. That consonant helps you hear what the classifier is. Kauchte, kauchtze, kauchtze, kauchle, kauchle, kauche, kauche. And the I is in there for all of them. Same thing. And then this could be ka, like, so you want to say, we succeeded. You change that K to a Y. Yao tu wadlaq. You want to say, we handed that round object to them. Dujit kautulit, or whoops. Dujit kautuati. What else? What else can we do? We wrote it. Kautushahit. You wrote it. So kaishe, kaitle, kaitle, kaidze. And we're gonna do, so the goal here is like just to show you this stuff and say, here's the charts, here's what they start to look like. And then we're gonna move into a verb and just start messing around with the verb. And not think about all the little pieces that we're gonna put together for the perfective in the future. We'll do those after. But for now, we're just gonna practice changing the object, then the subject, and then both. Okay, again. Here's our first one. So what we have is a verb for something to be dirty. As we start to look at this, so here's the theme. When I look at themes, I go, okay, there's an object, so I know I can go chat, ha, I, yi, has, and sometimes and then ka or k. There's no subject, so I don't have to worry about that. It's an L classifier, so that means in the perfective, we're going to do a perfective for this. I would expect it to be sh. There's got to be a perfective marker that pops up in the exact same spot, in between the object and the subject.
Just to let you know, your sound's going in and out, or maybe it's just me on my end. Been
It's
trying to turn the video off to see if it's better, but
Okay.
Hatsu.
I'm staying home next week. I won't come here anymore. And the other classroom I could plug into the wall. If I can only plug into the wall, I'll get a cable. That's what I'll do. I'll bring a cable here next week. Oh, now it tells me I'm unstable. You're unstable. It's really challenging me. Okay. Well, then you got to tell me. Tell me all the things. Okay, here's all the parts. So what you're going to do is put them together. So what do you think? Well, it's a 0. I'll show you that. So when I look at this, there's an object. It's 0. That is when we put it in the perfective. So should be short. So it should end with every time down here. So somebody tell me how to say, I am dirty.
ʼadudli.átk.
We gotta get a perfective marker in there though. Ah, okay, 2 words. There's the chat. That's the one we're changing. And now you are dirty. Yeah, if you're from the inland, this would be im. So that attaches directly to the verb, which causes that perfective marker to be contracted. They are dirty. A singular they. There is but that would be they got it dirty. They dirtied it. So this one has no subject, so that the third person should just stay as a 0. Yeah, we are dirty. There is a watushechech, but that would be we got it dirty. So what's interesting, there is a nearly parallel verb where you can add a subject, and that's a different verb, but that's the only thing that changes. It's kind of a tricky one. But I think I did hear it. Haushechech. This would also be for inland speakers. How would you say it? Yeah, way. Y'all are dirty.
x'úx'u.
Oh, that would be they are dirty. We'll get to that. We'll get to them. Ah, yishechech. Okay. Now kachtzin, they are dirty. Them alls.
x'úx'u.
You're just too nice. You didn't want to say it. You said, oh yeah, them guys are dirty. People are dirty. That would be people got it dirty. Or someone, it got dirty. You could also say that. Ah, u'lechech. Okay. And this would be kumlechech if you're in the interior. So we are focused here on the object. That's the thing we're changing for this one. We keep it blue. We got our objects blue. Our subjects will be red. Any questions? Sorry about the choppy internet.
Are those 2 O's? One of them is for the perfective marker.
Yeah, so when you add the perfective to ch, it just tends to stretch it out. Chu ziti. Chu digwas. Okay. Okay. Okay, let's see. We'll come back to this. We might do a quicker sort of walkthrough. We'll see how we do on Monday. Since the sound was cutting out too, like Yeah, let's just explain Tlingit grammar with choppy audio. That's a So we'll see how this comes across. Let's see. I think this is where we left off. Oh, wait, let me change. Okay, can you all hear this?
It's really quiet.
Yeah, what happened? Wait, hold on. Volume's up.
Very quiet.
Gee, hold on. Okay, so I don't think it's on that.
That's better.
Okay. Hold on 1 second. Let me try restarting. I guess it's a technology day.
Hmm.
Okay. Okay. I'll try it one more time. Share sound. Now there's nothing? Is
It's
that right?
worse.
The volume is low on that bar.
Oh, there it is. Why did it do that? Okay. Guess we have to abandon this idea. Okay, hold on. That makes no sense. Ishan. Okay. Let me stop that. Huh.
It wasn't hard enough, huh? You had to make it worse.
Right?
That's good.
But even on this, that's very low still. It's so weird. Well, I guess that won't happen today. We'll switch that to Monday. It's on. What did we do? We angered the technology overlords. I guess we just got to do another verb. Which means we got to look at a negative perfective. So a negative perfective, here's what changes. You have and y. They usually just kind of smush together. Like that's not the big change. The big change is that the classifier stays in its natural state. It's not plus I. So that means you're usually going to get you're going to get an A sound in a lot of the classifiers. The zero marker will go to a 0. The opens, the zeros will be high. Everything else will be long and low. But the glottal and the ejective don't have a low version. There is also this thing where if the irialis comes right before, or the perfective marker, right before the sound, a classifier with the letter A, it'll boot it out. It'll kick that letter A out of there. That's why we go from ausiku to x'úx'u. That should be just the letter S. You'd say x'úx'u because that ch shields the classifier from that irialis marker. We'll look at some examples. So these are negatives. Kech chwa, kech watu, kech ye, kech yi, kech wu, kech awu. The da, that letter A won't get knocked out of there. Chwada, watuda, yida, yida, wuda, auda. The S, yechwasa, watusa, yisa, yisa, usa, awus. And then, so same, but it's a similar type of pattern what you're looking at here. So here's these ones. So we have these consonant A ones. Chwada, chwasa, chwasha, chwasha. The single thing that changes is that consonant. With here, chwas, chwash, chwash. Same thing, you just don't have that letter A on there. And this is what the fourth person, they must always look like this. So, for example, kechwasatin, I don't see it. Kechwatusatin, kechyisatin, kechyisatin, kechawustin, because there's an it on there. Kechwadistin, it wasn't seen. Any questions about that? And these charts are here.
And what do the columns?
Oh, go ahead.
What do the columns on the right signify between like chwesa turning to chwes? What does that chwes signify?
These would be plus D classifiers. So if you have S plus D minus I, it's S. And that gets so it's a little bit tricky. So if you have like let's say a plus D SH classifier to write. So you could say it would be actually this one. I didn't write. So we're at a writer's retreat and I'm supposed to be writing. Shame on me. But this will also, but yeah, those are plus D. So at plus D, any plus D that goes negative, right? So you could say tlingit shtu chwadlitu. I studied. So now you're right here. Tlingit klesh shtu chwadlitu. I didn't study. Shame! Kadev! I'm just kidding. Any other questions about that?
So it's kind of like doing like a plus I plus D for sh would be like chwaj, but instead of a minus I going chwaja, it just turns to chwesh. Is that right?
Yes. So when we zoom in this classifier, so this, so you go from 0, 0, da, di, sa, si, s, z, z. These single consonant classifiers are wild. So you've got this, kakkoshhid, I'm going to write. Tlingit shtukkwashtu, I'm going to study tlingit. Oh, give me a spell. Kadeg. Shame. Yeah, so they're wild. I think they are. Because it feels like there should be a vowel there, but there isn't. But what also happens with the negative is the vowel does get kicked out. We see it right here. x'úx'u. 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 They didn't watch it. They're supposed to watch the river. They're supposed to watch the baby. They're supposed to watch my dog. x'úx'u. Yeah, and so I was talking with my uncle one time. We were maybe talking some trash about people. We weren't being nice. But they had it coming. But he told me, he says, I was like, oh, that's how you'd say that. So they don't know anything. And it would work for this too. You say, he doesn't love anything, or they don't love anything. So the next one does show what happens. There's not, well, there are some changes. Like, so once you put the thematic on there, and what we'll do is we'll just start looking through examples. Like our goal here is just to sort of look at these prefixes, see what they look like, and to have these tables as I think your transition to get off of the books. Right? As I was talking about this today, I said, learning a language is really interesting because it's sort of like you're reading a book about how to ride a bike. That was my example today. And at some point, you gotta just get on that bike. But I think you gotta keep these things with you. So to start getting off books, so you don't have to go look up all the verbs, is you start taking these charts and you start with some verbs that you think you can get a handle on, that you use on a regular basis. And you use the chart to put it together, then you check it back to the database. And then eventually, all of these options here will be in your brain, and you'll be able to pull them up. So there was a question about, so someone tell me how to say, I saw myself. So we're gonna have, let me get the verb for you.
X'úx'u.
What's a x'úx'u? Make this bigger. Okay. So now if I wanted to say, I didn't see myself,
x'úx'u.
I will see myself.
x'úx'u.
So then there's that S again, that single S. And I won't see myself. Because I'm a vampire. There's your, oh, we're supposed to do scary stories. I forgot all about it. Next week, I guess.
x'úx'u.
Okay. How about this? So here's this. Last thing, then we can go. Help me change these to third person.
ʼadudli.
What's the team?
x'úx'u.
What's the team?
Because they're also the options. So now it's not an
Trash. Schwarztein. Trash.
Ooh, this is really tricky.
x'úx'u.
But there's no If you just took that off there, you got it.
was teen.
Yeah, well.
Gach to see. Gach.
How's the teen?
So now we're going future. They will see themselves.
Oh,
Actually, we're just going to change that.
Good.
Kugwastin.
Was teen.
There you go. It all happened. It was scary enough.
Would the root go low on that fish? Couldn't it?
Yes, it's on both sides. Gonna teach. Terrifying. Johan Gulchish. Ya iti asan de kwal keglichtsine we ichtidei. Kachonach tuasukuch iti sa achi. Ach eight sai achi. De awe Gulchish Johan. Yigo ayachwan. A kachwan ish yuchathangi datawe yijakachtine. It ayata kwalkisatin. Klesh dirty. So now we're gonna be not dirty. We were dirty, now we're gonna be not dirty. That's the goal. Cheesh. Yikecha.
Tschüss.
So
Cheese.
Sheesh.
Goodness, cheese.
Over.
Jeez.
I put the links in an email to Ganesh Chish.
okay. I'll post them.